Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be another video on Konsta UI as an alternative for mobile UI components when building applications with Capacitor. So basically you can take your Vue application, you can use Konsta UI to give it a nice mobile component. The benefit of this is that it also is built with Tailwind, so you can incorporate Tailwind with your design. You create your Vue app, you use Ionic Capacitor to package it up, and then you deploy on a device. So please make sure you like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and let's get to the code. So since Konsta UI requires Tailwind, instead of going through the approach of installing with vite and then fumbling around and trying to find the Tailwind directions, let's just go straight to Tailwind. There's a page on how to install Tailwind CSS with vite, and we'll just do it that way. And so let's just get started. So we're going to say npm create vite latest vite, and we'll call this vite tabs. And we're going to use Vue. We'll keep it simple with JavaScript, and we're there. And now to follow, once again, we're going to follow their approach. Let's cd into project, cd vite tabs, and then let's copy this code they have down here. That's not what I want. Let's copy this code here. Copy. And then now it looks like I need to go into my Tailwind config and do some configuration. So let's open Visual Studio Code. We'll leave some room for our documentation over here on the side. And it says we need to go into Tailwind config. So let's do this. Tailwind config. Well, let's make this a little bit bigger because that looks a little small. I think that's better. So we go into Tailwind config, and it looks like we need to add this, so we can find the code, the files. So let's replace this content here. And now that's added. Let's go one more bigger. Okay. Now the content's added. Looks like, and now add the Tailwind directives. So do we have a main CSS? Let's go here. We have our style CSS. Let's copy. And we don't need any of this. We're just going to remove all this. And so we have our base, and then start to build process. And let's start the build. So let's shut this. Let's open our terminal. And npm run dev. And now let's see what we have. It should look pretty messed up since I just removed all the styling. So our app is running. No utility classes. This is not expected. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so it's running, but let's make sure that we have our Tailwind in there. So let's go into app.vue and let's remove all this stuff we know we're not going to use. And div, and let's see, class. I'm just checking to see if I'm getting my Tailwind classes, which I am. So we can say this text purple. And we'll say font bold, low. And that's interesting. It did not get, that does not look purple. Let's try making it bigger. set the text to 4 times its size. Let's save. And why is it not getting my classes? What did I miss on the install? Okay, so the step I missed inside of here is that we want to include the Vue extension on here. So I've added the Vue extension, and you can see we're getting the style we wanted. So we know that our app has Tailwind configured properly and it is working. So now the next step is, let's go back to Konsta UI, and we need to install Konsta. So let's just use the terminal that we have here. So I will stop this, stop my terminal, and I'll do npm install Konsta. And then let's make sure we get to the right one because we want Konsta Vue. I already did the installation, and so I should be able to start to set this project up to use Konsta Vue. So I just noticed that I did not complete this installation because I need to extend Tailwind with this Konsta configuration information. So let's do that. Konsta, add that, and then wrap the import, or wrap the export. So let's add it there, close this out. And that's the config, and then since it uses material design, they have actually imported CSS. So let's import the CSS. And let's go to our style file. The imports need to go at the top. So we add the import at the top. And let's look at our file. Where's our file? And so that style is there, but now let's add, something that's Konsta specific here. And if we, let's go to usage. Let's just wrap the whole thing. Actually, let's just copy all of this now and see if we get something that actually looks like an app to appear. So let's just drop it into, let's close this. Let's drop it inside of here. And the one thing that you need to know is that you're going to need to import all of these Konsta components. So let's just put an import here. And we need to import each one of them. So kapp, let's say from Konsta Vue. Okay, and so we got kapp, we have kpage, knavbar, kblock, and that's it. And so now let's see what our page looks like. And this is what our page looks like. We have the navbar, we have the title, and then we have our page, and I guess the block looks like it probably puts some basic padding around the outside to indicate that's the page. So that's how we're certain that, and then let's check one last time. Let's make sure we still have our Tailwind. So we can say class, text, and we're going to say 2LG, and we'll say text. I just saw lime, so we'll put that in there. And so we have our Konsta UI, and then we have our our Tailwind CSS working as we wanted it to. Okay, let's move on to getting tabs into this application. So to get tabs into the application, we're going to have to add a router, and let's start off in main. What we will do is we'll configure our router right here inside of this page instead of creating a separate file. So let's import, get our imports going. And we know we're going to need create router, and we're going to need create, I think it's web history. Yeah, so that's what we want to start out with, and then I'm gonna copy some code here to get us moving. So we need to create the router, and what we need to do is, if I copy in my router like this, that creates the router, and then the router has this history defined, and then it has the routes, and that's basically it. And then what happens is on here we will do a use, and then we'll have the router. And then we'll mount the app. Okay. Now that's that. Now for this all to work also, what we're doing with tabs is we are going to have a default tab route, which will lead to tabs.home. But to get to tabs home, you need to first have a tabs. So we will create our tabs, and then our tabs, all of our routes need to have a component, and we're making sure they have a name. So there's a component, tab route, which we haven't created, and there's the name tabs. And then for the tabs, they're going to have child routes. So we're going to add children. And we're just going to put the children in all together and just kind of explain what's going on. So let's get our child routes. And so, there we go. So what's happening is that when I hit my tabs route, it has a child route called home. And the way the magic works is right here with these two things. So let's go to our app view, and our app view is going to change now. It's just going to be the app, and then inside here we're going to have a router view. And the router view is basically where we're going to render the component. And so let's get our imports here. Router view, and this comes from view router. And let's quit this and npm install view router. Okay, now we have view router installed. And let's go back to our main. So we have our main routes set up, but we need to get our components. We need a TabRoot, we need a home view, and we need an about view. So let's go into, let's create a views folder. And then in here, we're going to create 3 files. So we have our TabRoot, copy V, and let's just rename these. About. We call it about view, and then our home view. And let's do the about view and home view first because they're going to be pretty straightforward. They're basically going to be components that render inside the TabRoot, so we can keep them real simple. So we're going to actually, let's leverage some of the stuff we get. Let's put them in a template. And let's just write, this is about view. And we need to put our script, And then let's make sure we import from and in here we need our K block, and that's all we're using. And then let's copy all this and go to our home view, and this is our home view, and that's all we need there. And then now to our TabRoot, which is going to be the most complicated of everything. But we are going to base it off of what is already done in the documentation. And we'll talk about what they have in the documentation and we'll drop in the code. So basically, we're going to create a page with the title, NavBar, and then you have a TabBar object, and the TabBar object contains TabBar links, and the links are the buttons that take you to specific views. That's how we're going to do it here. In this example, all they're doing is based on the app active tab. They're hiding, where is it? Based on the active tab, they're hiding and showing content. So, which is, see, so right here, if active tab is 1, then they do something else. If active tab is 2, we're not going to do that. Basically, what we want to do is go to a completely different component. That's what About View and Home View are. And to do that, you can use this link props. And the link props will basically treat the button like a link. So, and because we have set up, we're going to have these two router views, we're going to tell it for the child components to render inside the tabs view. And only the parent component will render in the default view. So that's how we're going to, that's the trick that we're going to use to try to make this work. Let's hopefully it goes well. So let's get started. So where is my TabRoot? Let's give it some space. And like I said, we'll follow the same approach. We'll copy and augment template. And then we know we need a setup script. And so let's just start off with the top here. And we'll end here. And I'll talk about what I have. The link, tab bar. Okay. And then a page. And of course we need our imports again. So and we'll start, and let's say from and let's start with our K page, K nav bar, K tab bar, K tab bar link. And I think we have everything. What we need to add here is we always want our labels to show, so we're going to say true. We have no icons that we're going to render, so we remove that from here. This is not a conditional anymore. We're always going to show our label. Our label, this is going to be our home. That's our first one. And then what this will do is when I click the link, it'll define the active tab. And so we're going to say the tab home. So that'll set the active tab. And then then let's add the component stuff we were talking about. So the component that this is going to be is a router link. So it's going to treat this thing like a link. And then the link props are 2. So where do we want this thing to go to? We want it to go to, I believe it is tabs home. So go to /tabs/home. So that's one of them. And let's see what we have anything showing on the page yet. Let's run this. Oh, that's the install. I want to run npm run dev. And why is nothing showing? Nothing showing. Did I add? This is my main app. App view has the router link. TabRoot has the main has the router. All right, I'm not importing any of my components. Let's import our components. Let's import home from components, well, not components, view, views, home view, and import TabRoot from views, TabRoot, and then the last one, import about view from views about view. All right, so now that I've done that, you can see that we have our tab bar, our title showing, and then home showing as a tab at the bottom. And that's all we got so far. So I'm not certain why when I clicked on the home, like if I'm at home, why don't I see my home text here? So let's see what's going on. K-block P, this is the home view. Oh, because I didn't add my router view to the bottom here. So let's go down inside before the end of my page and let's add router view. But make sure we have to name it tabs. And we don't have to name it tabs, but we're naming it tabs because that's what we're telling inside of my component, that that's where we want to render that view. So the root goes in the default router view, and the component, home component, goes in the tabs router view. So that's why it's showing there. Okay, and we have our about, so let's go back to our TabRoot and follow the same approach here for our tab bar link. So we go to our tab bar link, let's copy this, and let's do this. So that's the about tab, and let's just change all this to about. And we have see our other tabs appeared. Let's change the title, and this is about. And let's click on about, and it switches to the about view. Click on home, it switches to the home view. Let's zoom this in a bit. There you go. Home, about. Let's fix a couple of things. So on the click, let's do more than just set the active tab. Let's set a page title. So page title equals about. And on the home view, on the click, page title equals home. And let's change this to a binding page title. And then let's create a page title. Let's create two variables. We need our page title equals a ref. And then we also need our active tab. And we're going to make that our ref, and we're going to set the default to tab.home. And let's import our ref. And now let's refresh our page. Set and go to home, and then now when I click on home, about everything changes. Okay. So we have our basic tabs working. Let's show what it looks like to have a child route. So off of my home view, I want to be able to have a child route. Okay, so what we're going to do is what we want, let's go back to our route configuration, is we want another component to render inside of the tab. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to put a button inside of my, let's go to my home view and put our button. And let's leverage what they have. They have a K button, I believe. Yes. And let's see, how does this work? Title is, and yes, I'm in my home view. This is my home view. And I guess I need to give it, so let's say class and so K button with, is that how you do important, or is it the other way? I think that's how you do it. And then let's say my height is minus. Okay, why is my button not showing? I guess I could just look in the documentation. So let's go to here and let's look up a button and get an example. All right. All right, so clearly we don't want this button. So it looks like I can control the width here. So if I don't want it to be, let's see, that's 16, so we get 8. That's odd. Let's see, 24. Oh, all right, so we like 24. So that's our button. Just playing around with some Tailwind to see how that'll work. And then we want our router. So we want to be able to click the button and go back. And we'll just cheat and just get our router that way. We'll say router dot go or router dot back. Oh, no, not back. Here's one we want to push. And we're going to go to a tabs, home detail will be the route. And that should take us to a page that's nested in here inside of home. And so let's go over to here and let's create a page, and we'll just copy our home view. Let's copy the about view. And we're going to rename this to home detail. And since it's a page, we're going to be specific and say page. This is home detail. Shouldn't have to say that because since it's a page, we're going to give it the whole NavBar title. So home detail, NavBar title, we'll just title. And we need to wrap this in a page to get that right. And then let's get our imports. Kpage, navbar, and the next page is trying to go to the route, but I haven't added the route yet. So let's go to main and add our route. And we're going to just call it home detail, home, but we wanted to show the detail page. And let's import detail page, home detail page. Let's just be specific. And let's change this to home detail page, and down here, home detail page. So we have our home page. We click I'm on my detail page, but I am missing my back button. So let's go back to the documentation, and I think there is something called back button. Let's see. NavBar. I saw it. Okay, let me find this. It's NavBar backlink. So let's go find the NavBar, and it has the backlink. So this is what we want. We want it on the left side. Let's just copy this, and inside of here, we'll just drop that in, and we'll say router back. And so let's go to our page and let's refresh. We have our tabs. We have our next page, which takes us to the home detail page, and then our back page, which takes us back up. And I think we're good. This is the basics of integrating a tab bar in here. Oh, one last thing I forgot. This is about capacitors, so let's make sure we can deploy this thing to a device. So let's open up the Ionic Visual Studio Code plugin, which I highly recommend you download. I'll include the link in the description. Let's give ourselves a little bit more room. So now we select the Ionic. Let's open this up to get more room. Add capacitor. Capacitor is added. For the next step, make sure you build the app before you try to add. I cannot find a web access directory. Ionic build can only run in an Ionic project directory. Didn't this just add capacitor? Oh. So what it's complaining about is that it needs to see a specific Ionic build command in package.json. So let's create it. And I believe it needs, where's the commands? Right, there's Ionic build right there. Build web copy failed, cannot find a web assets directory. So the problem here is that I believe the vite build puts it in the dist directory. So we need to go into our capacitor config and change this to dist. All right, and now let's try and build this again. So go back, Okay, so now build is working right. We've added, oh no, let's now add iOS to the project. Add iOS. And so now it's added iOS. And now let's update CocoaPods because it's telling me I need to. And then now, let's sync our project. This is all just basic setup stuff to get it going. And then now you can run it. So you just click here on iOS to run it. It's going to ask you to pick a simulator to run on. You pick the simulator, and then it runs. As you can see here, it's doing some syncing, updating the plugins. So now it's running Xcode build. The build will fail initially. No, the simulator is fine. If you're trying to do this on a device, it'll fail initially because you have to open up Xcode and set the team that the app's associated with. And the way you do open Xcode is you just click this open Xcode button, and that'll open Xcode for you. All right, so the app is running here in the browser. On my mobile app. We are going to my About view, my Home view, the next page, Home Detail page view. All right, it looks like the SafeArea is not being honored, so let's go. I think there's some changes we need to make to our index.html. Let me take a quick look in here. I believe it's this viewport. So let's see if we can get the right values for that. I'm going to provide all of this source code so you can be able to look at it for reference, which is really what I'm doing right now. So I changed my viewport, added some additional parameters on here. So let's go back, and we just go back to our plugin, and we just click the play button, and it will recompile it. See, it does the build, it does the copy, and then it runs it. It sets the target. This is the ID for the simulator, and then it builds it. And now we get the UI that we want by adding these additional parameters here to my viewport. So now if we look at it, we have the room for our home page with the proper title. I click to About, go to the About view, go back to my home page, click the next page, I get my back button. And this is what we want to do, and it's running on device. You could follow the exact same approach you run on Android. Like I said, I just want to give you an example of this, and we will see you next time.